And to wrap up the kind of insights and takeaways for this portion where we added in a musical track, I just want to touch on why I was deciding to cut the way that I did. So if I expand this a little bit, we can see clearly that these four video clips are really the same length. That means the pacing is equal between this section of the edit. So let's go ahead and play that through. Boom, boom, boom. The reason I decided to do that is because the track was dictating the way I was cutting. So you can feel that right here, what you're hearing is the strong beat that's happening. Boom right there, boom right there, boom right there, and boom right there. And then what changes in the track is that strong beat moves to this portion where things go and slow down, right? So when you're not knowing when to cut or when to really switch things up on your edit or what pacing to have, and you're using a musical track, what I want you to take away from this lesson is that you're using your ear and the beat and the rhythm to dictate what is shown and what is being cut. And if I cut to something that's not as primary as what we are cutting to here and really following the rhythm and the pacing of the song, let's say we cut to the bells in the background. Okay, there's a bell right there. So we'll see what that looks like. So you can see we're using the same shots in literally the same exact ordering, but you're feeling the moments differently, and there's different emphasis given to different moments depending on where they're lined up with your audio track, with your musical track, and where those strong beats or striking points are hitting your footage. So really think about that and keep that in mind as you're putting your edits together and as we're moving together throughout the rest of this course. So now that we've finished these important first steps for this section, I want to now go through the exporting process and some of the really just key fundamentals with that. Now, we've been working, and it's likely you've been working as well in the vertical video format category. So we'll walk through what it is like exporting for vertical video, horizontal video, and really also keeping in mind that you want to export with the proper settings of where that video is going to live. If that video is going to live on YouTube, you're going to export with certain settings. If it's going to live on Instagram, it's different settings, and so on. So let's hop in here and see our final edit here. And I want you to pull up your footage as well so you can follow along. And we're going to go up to File. We're going to go to Export, and we're going to click on Media. And actually, before we do that, we want to make sure that the in and out points in our timeline are in the proper place. You can see up here on the top bar of our timeline, we want to have it so that the in point is at the beginning, and of course the out point is at the end. What'll happen if the out point, I'm hitting I for in point, O for out point, by the way. If the out point is here, it's going to export everything up to here and not include the rest of the video. So we always want to make sure that our in and out points are set properly for exactly what we want to export. Yeah, and one thing that I'll say that's kind of a little bit handy is if you want to kind of test something or share one part of your video with someone, or yeah, like what I'll do sometimes when I don't know if a certain scene is working but I don't want to export the whole video, you can set an in point and an out point for just, a little 10-second clip and just export that part. right? So there's some cool uses for doing it. But for this circumstance, we're going to set the in point at the beginning, the out point at the very end. Going to go to File, going to go to Export and go to Media, or we can hit Command M, and that's going to do the same exact thing. This is going to bring up our export settings panel. And what we want to do here is make sure that our format is H.264. This is really the best format for online video, anything that you're sharing online where you want to retain as much quality as possible, but have it in a more manageable and optimized codec or format for online use, which is pretty much going to be almost every single one of your exports. Rarely do I ever use anything else in here. If I'm exporting just audio, I'll go and I'll use waveform audio, and then I'll set my sample rate or bit rate to 32-bit. That's going to give it the max quality as possible, and choose the destination. But that's separate. So right now what we're focusing on is exporting our video. So we're going to go H.264, and then we're going to go to the preset tab, and we're going to click that, okay? Because this is going to be, for this video specifically, viewed as an Instagram story format, what I'm going to do is choose the mobile device HD function, okay? If this was going to be a YouTube video per se, then I would go to YouTube video 1080p or 4K, depending on what it was shot as. And a little bit of a pro tip here. When you are exporting a 1080p high def video file, which almost all cameras are shooting, and it's very likely that that's the format you'll be editing in, whether it's going to Vimeo, Facebook, or YouTube, a little bit of a hack is to click the 4K function. So you can do 4K for YouTube here, 4K for Vimeo right here, and you can do 4K for Facebook. What that's going to do is it's going to compress the information less, and it's going to give more space for all of the pixels, all of the data, and all of the information, even if it's a 1080p file. So you'll see that if you export a 1080p video for YouTube and that same exact 1080p video at 4K for YouTube, and you look at them side by side, you're going to see the 4K file is going to look a little bit more crisp. There's going to be a little bit more detail and a little bit more color and overall data that's in your footage and in your video, because YouTube is compressing it less, and these platforms are compressing it less because you're telling it it's a much larger file. So let's hop back into what we're currently exporting. This is going to be playing on a mobile device for Instagram. So for doing that, I always go to mobile device 1080p, and we can see our audio, video, effects, multiplexer, captions, publish. Okay. For audio, what I always do as well is it's going to, depending on your export preset, it's going to change your bit rate depending on the quality that you're exporting as. When you do mobile device 1080p, it puts your bit rate at 128. Okay, we want to have our audio at the highest settings as possible. We're going to make sure audio quality is set to high as well. We're going to go to the video tab, and we can also scrub through our export to get a preview of what it's going to be looking like. Now you can see there are these really big black bars on the side. That's because our aspect ratio is 1080 by 1920 instead of 1920 by 1080. So to get around this issue and not export a video with these big black bars, we're going to match the source of our sequence settings and make that match the settings for our export. So I'm going to click match source. And we can also click render at maximum depth and use maximum render quality. This is going to allow your editing software to work more frame by frame on each different characteristic and detail that's in each frame. And then we have the multiplexer tab. I really never go into here. These are really not parameters that you ever need to be changing for 99% of your edits. We have the caption tab as well that you really likely 99.9% of the time you will not be using. And then we have the publish tab, which this can be handy if you want to link Premiere directly with your Behance profile, Adobe profile, Facebook, Twitter, Vimeo, and YouTube. I personally don't ever export directly out of Premiere directly to another platform. To me, that I've spent so many years not having that function, it's just weird to me. Maybe I'm too set in my ways here, but I always like to have the individual file that I'm then dragging into where I want it to go. Maybe I'm old fashioned, but I don't ever use the publish function. But of course, take the time if it's applicable to you and would speed up your workflow, take the time to set it up. And now that we've got all these parameters set up, the final step is to click our output name to determine the name of our video file and the location, which is where the video file is going to be exported to. And I'm sure you can guess we're going to be keeping everything very organized and exporting it to the proper video folder. So I'm going to go to Shasta Edit, and I'm going to create an exports folder. Okay, and I'm going to title it Mount Shasta. And this is a good time to kind of talk about labeling your exports. Now, a lot of the time you export something and you think that's possibly going to be the final one. And then you realize, nope, there's some major changes that need to be made, or something's not working, whatever it is. The best way that I found, of course, you can label it by the date, Mount Shasta Edit, so-and-so date. But what I've learned over the years is best to do version 1, version 2, version 3. So most of the time, almost all the time, I'll do the name of the project for the export name and then V1. If it's V2, it would be V2, V3, V3. Okay, so V1. And I also add where it's going to live. So in this case, this is going to be an Instagram story. Okay. So if it was going to be a normal post, it'd just be Instagram post. If it was going to be YouTube video, it'd be Instagram, or it would be, excuse me, Mount Shasta V1 YouTube. Okay. Mount Shasta V1 Facebook. So Mount Shasta V1 Instagram story. We're going to hit save. And then we're going to go down to hit the export button.